Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hey,
Good
hi.
afternoon.
I've been having some issues with my audio end of last week, and I just wanted to make sure that I was not echoing or causing blinding deafness.
No,
Sounded
you're
normal so
great.
far.
I guess it wouldn't be blinding deafness. I'm switching my metaphor. How's everyone doing on this very warm day?
Pretty good. It's been a busy day.
Amen. Like it's been a busy week. Looking at everyone's faces last night in the room, even before, it was like everyone's beat. It's been a long week.
Yeah, definitely. I feel that.
First week of school is always heavy. It's exciting, but it's draining.
Like even with like the littles, like the little kids in your own house, it's just like their emotional like wave takes takes all the energy they have to offer. They got nothing left. Who else are we waiting for?
Commissioner Rooks and Commissioner Sally. They're probably going to join pretty soon. I know the new time that we have is 4:15.
That is true.
So
It's taking that last minute to send that last email or go get a drink or
Right.
something to eat for the first time.
let's see. Yeah.
Commissioner Sally's here now, Commissioner Esposito.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I
And
apologize if folks waiting.
No, you're not late. You're fine.
Okay.
We just wanted to let her know you were ready to get started.
Awesome.
Tanisha, can you remind me, is Commissioner Rooks coming to this one, or was this the day that he was unavailable?
Yes, this is the day he's unavailable.
Okay. Thanks for that. Okay.
Excuse me, y'all. Excuse me. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a little bit of confusion. The CEO is on the other she's on the other line. So she's definitely not in the right place, and I assume that you'll want her here to join as part of the meeting. Am I understanding that correctly? I'm just trying to figure out how to get her over here, if that's okay.
For the policy committee?
No, there was a board notice today about a special public meeting.
Andre, that's already happened on the other line.
Oh, then we should probably go tell her that. I shall return. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 2024-2025 Policy Committee year. So I hope everyone's excited. I know school just started, and I did want to take a moment to introduce our two newest members. So we have Commissioner Stefan Redding Lallinger and Commissioner Emily Ames Messenger. So say hello, everyone. Give them a round of applause because they bring a wealth of experience and knowledge to this committee. So I'm really looking forward to working with both of you. And
So
then
excited to
returning
be with
members.
y'all.
Yeah. And do you all want to take a moment just to say anything about yourselves, your background, and what you hope to bring to the policy committee?
Okay, looks like Emily's pointing to me. Sure, I'll take a quick 30 seconds. And Commissioner Esposito, thanks so much for being so welcoming. I'm really excited to be a part of this committee. I think the most important things about me are that I'm a father to 3 daughters, one of whom is old enough to be in city schools, and she's in city schools in kindergarten. She started kindergarten on Monday. I'm a former teacher and principal, and have worked in school districts before, and so I usually bring that lens with me. And now I work on policy in my day job. So I think the policy committee was a great place to land. I'm really excited to listen, to learn, and hopefully contribute some useful things. Commissioner Ames Messenger, I'll pass it to you.
Hi, I'm Emily. I am also a parent of 2. I have a pre-K and a first grader here in Baltimore City Schools who are very excited. I am started out as a teacher and was a social worker and a community school coordinator, and have done kind of macro social work. So have gotten to do a little bit of policy over the last little couple of years. And I'm very excited to be here with you all. Learn the ropes. Let's go.
Yay, thank you. Thank you so much. And returning members, we have Commissioner Sally and Commissioner Rooks, who were awesome last year. So I think we have like a really strong committee, and I know we have like a really busy calendar. So the policy, if anyone hasn't seen the policy calendar, the 2024-2025 calendar has been published. And yeah, it's pretty stacked. So like there's still work that we're doing to really consolidate some of our policies. And we're definitely going to have a lot of valuable compliance reports this year. So let me see on our agenda. Oops, let me pull it up. It looks like the first presentation that we have is about our non-discrimination policies and changes that address the state law HB 130 or 1386 school employee anti-bias training. And I believe we have, let's see who we have to present.
Hi, everybody. It's Josh Sivan. I'm the Chief Legal Officer for City Schools. So we've been to the committee a number of times. The new members won't have been here, but to revise this group of policies in light of a lot of legal developments over recent years. The most recent revisions actually were adopted in February 2004. And that round of revisions was initiated by an effort to address updates to the U.S. Department of Education's rules implementing Title IX, which is Title IX of the Education Amendment Acts of 1972, which prohibit discrimination on the basis of sex. In that process, we also went through a lot of other legal changes, but that was the primary piece. We held those changes for a while, because the federal rule changes were delayed. But when it looked like those were going to continue to delay and we wanted to ensure that we were prepared for this school year, we decided to move forward with what we could and delay the remaining pieces until after the rules were adopted. So now the final Title IX rule has been published. It was published on April 29th, 2024. And it largely kept with the initial rules, but there were also additional proposed changes. The rules went into effect on August 1st, 2024, and they apply to prospectively to sex discrimination that occurred after that. Should note that the U.S. Department of Education is also considering separate rules around discrimination in athletics. That's not covered here, so that could be something that we'd have to come back to these rules, but that's not what we're dealing with now. So, just to recap, there's been a lot of flux, in part implementing and changes in administration from the Obama administration to the Trump administration to the Biden administration. And here are some of the evolutions over time. In addition, right after the Title IX rule was put into effect in August, multiple states and several school districts across the nation filed litigation challenging the act. They mostly focused on the interpretation of sex in the law to include gender identity, discrimination based on gender identity. And also they challenged the broader, by which I mean more encompassing, definition of sexual harassment. So far, there's been a lot of federal court action over the last couple months, and federal courts have enjoined, which means prohibited, implementation in 26 states. Maryland's not one of those states. In essence, the existing interpretation of Title IX is consistent in state courts. So we're hopeful that it will not be one of those cases where litigation is still pending. You may have seen recently, maybe as recent as last week, I'm losing track of time with the opening of schools. The Supreme Court was asked to prevent those injunctions from going into effect. They declined, so that case may well get to the Supreme Court. In the meantime, our judgment is that we should move forward with getting our regulations ready to implement, because the U.S. Department of Education has made clear that in the states like Maryland, where there are no injunctions, they are going to enforce those rules. So just to show you the breadth of this applies to our non-discrimination laws and policies regarding students, regarding employees, and then we have a set of policies specifically focused on sex-based discrimination, both students and employees, and also rules that are implicated here on pregnant and parenting students. So most of the changes in the Title IX rules are consistent with the existing board rules that we most recently revised in April. So just this, we broadly prohibit all forms of sex-based discrimination, require school districts to provide all students access to bathrooms based on their gender identity. I'm just going through this. It's a couple clicks. We add definitions based on parenting status. We require our Title IX coordinator to monitor for barriers to reporting. And this is all in the existing rules that the board has already adopted. We also require the Title IX coordinator to support and consult with schools. We have a grievance procedure that applies to all sex-based discrimination, not just sexual harassment. Couple more pieces. We require prompt and effective action to end any prohibited discrimination. We require supportive measures, meaning like counseling and the like, for both complainants, meaning people who have alleged discrimination that they experience, and also people who are the alleged perpetrators as appropriate. And we designate all employees as mandatory reporters. We make sure that we take into account particularly the impact for students with disability of any discrimination. And we make sure that also, if we need to convene an IEP meeting or even think about the ways in which we need to particularly provide supportive measures to students with disabilities. So then there's a set of rules, a smaller set of provisions that we actually need to make some additional updates. And really, these are in the nature of tweaks. And some are ones and Commissioner Esposito remembers that we actually said when we went to the board to finally adopt in April, here were the ones we were going to hold aside, right? And I remember talking with Commissioner Esposito around that. So this is really mostly those ones where we said we're waiting for these for the final rules, and then the Department of Education did make some additional tweaks, so we clarified on that as well. So we are now adopting the broader definition of sex-based harassment, streamlining investigative procedures, and this is really important that the rules that were existing under the administration of President Trump had a very long gestation period for complaints, which the ability to go quicker here also makes sure that we can quickly come in and address situations that our students in K through 12 are experiencing. Mostly those rules are better situated for colleges and universities. Also, the expanded obligation to address discrimination even when some conduct occurred outside city schools programs. I'm not reading through all, but we revised the definitions, clarified some procedures for dismissal of complaints, clarified the informal dispute resolution procedures, some notice requirements, supportive measures, and responsibilities. So those are the just big buckets of things that we went through with a fine-tooth comb. The regulations are super long, but we wanted to make sure that we got all of them. Then also we made some minor additional tweaks because we were preparing for a rollout of updates to our all staff fair practices training, which actually rolled out on everyone last Wednesday. All city schools employees got notifications of that updated training that we are really proud of aligning, and that training moving forward. And that training also aligns with some state law that requires school districts to have anti-bias training. So that's incorporated in. So just so that the public and you all know, this updated training has 4 modules, one on equal employment opportunity, which we've had and we're updating. And then additionally, we're addressing 3 student topics in particular that either have had significant legal change or we've gotten lots of questions in our fair practices department. Student bullying, harassment, and intimidation, supporting LGBTQ plus students and employees, and respecting religious diversity. We have had some positive feedback. One principal said that this was the most informative training that they'd received on this topic. So we were proud of that. And we set aside some time in pre-service for staff to take this training, which takes between 60 and 90 minutes. And already, as of the first day, we'll get updated statistics, but as of the first day, over 3,000 staff people had participated in the modules. So because these are minor updates required by changes of law, and just to be clear to the newer members, we have each policy as a tier of engagement. You'll see tier 1, 2, and 3. This one's tier 1. So for those, we post on the website, and we also go to our key stakeholders for written feedback with the option if they want to have a presentation. So that's our presentation, and now open for questions.
And I'll pass it to the other commissioners to see if anyone has any questions.
Thanks so much.
Mine is just a general. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Mine is just a global, thank you, Chief Siddons, for the continued evolution of this. It's exciting to see how this continues to evolve year over year. So I appreciate the work that your team and others have done, especially hearing the feedback that we provided last year on the training front. I think is really key and pivotal, and it's exciting to see this come to fruition. So thank you.
Absolutely. Hopefully we'll go by with 1 year where we don't come to revise these policies, because we really want to make sure, and it's important to us, that our staff understand this and are clear on what the rules are. So we've been really thoughtful about that as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to second that, and I'm really glad to hear that many of our existing policies were already sort of forward-thinking in a way that meant that we didn't have to do too many changes here, so I appreciate that. Can you give me a sense, Chief Sivan, you may not have numbers offhand, I guess I'm just looking for ballpark, I'm not looking for specifics here, but about how many discrimination complaints we get per year that would fall, and I don't know if you have it by category or just if you have a general ballpark, and if it's something to get back to me on, that's totally fine. I'm just wondering about how we're doing here in terms of the number of complaints that happen on an annual basis?
It's a really good question. We do actually 2 compliance reports. So for many of our policies, we have compliance reports that also come to this commission. We have a slew of them, not this one for this week, but we do one on the employee policies and do one on the student policies. So on the employee front, that's the ACA, ACB, and I can circulate or point you to where that is. We were just preparing the one for this year, but we're in the, I think, I don't want to, around somewhere between 1,600 complaints plus accommodations and the like. And the student number is larger, but we fold that in. And I think this is important with our bullying report, because one of the things that we've made a big stake in the ground is that most student complaints of discrimination are actually subsets of bullying. And because our bullying reporting protocols are robust and clear, we've always thought that it's confusing to staff, it's confusing to parents, it's confusing to have to say, well, is this bullying or is this sexual discrimination? So we say, file this through a bullying report, and we on the end of with fair practice we'll sort that out, because we want to get as many complaints into the process and not in any way inhibit people on, do I remember the right form that I'm doing? So I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, but that one has a compliance report, and you can look at those compliance reports going back through the years as well. We actually had an increase in our student bullying complaints, in part because I think we've done a really good job in collaboration with the Wholeness Office of getting out increased awareness among students in particular about how to report, and increased confidence that when they do report, our staff will be responsive and not just say, oh, we're not going to even investigate, but take it seriously and respond.
Great. Thank you so much, Chief.
The new school-based signage on that is really great. So well done. Kind of looking for, you're talking about having changes coming up, hopefully not. Just looking at the comprehensive school health framework is coming kind of down the pike, both from MSDE and then also possibly through the legislature, and just realizing that what we're teaching in the language we're holding accountable for with adults in the system, and how that mirrors what's coming from an instructional lens throughout our students, like how, and that's a state process, but like what's the process of looking through to make sure that those things align, and that's not going to cause confusion.
Great question, and thanks, by the way, at the beginning for the shout out about the posters in schools. Katia Stokes, our director of whole child services, has made a big push about making sure those are visible. On the language front, I mean, one of the things we've said clearly in the policies and also in the trainings are, because language is evolving so quickly, that not all the terms in the policy will reflect how people define themselves. And we strongly endorse in city schools, and the board has long endorsed, the right of people to define their own identities. And that's a really important statement that we've tried to stress as we've moved forward. And I think part of the really challenging part of the policy development and policy review work that you're embarking on us with is not just how do we align with what the feds are saying, but also what the state's saying, and then also what all our other policies are saying. So we just reviewed our wellness policy, which talks about our comprehensive health framework, but making sure that our wellness policy talks to these policies, making sure that our health curriculum talks, and frankly, that, state of Maryland has a different definition of harassment than the feds do. So trying to write our policy in a way where we've erred generally, the board's been a leader of this, and saying we want to take the most expansive view of protection. So when we've gone through the standards, the state of Maryland standards actually broader than the standard under federal law. So we've adopted the state of Maryland standard as the standard we, meaning the board, has adopted. And so that means that under our own policies, those protections are in place. There's also, for instance, a robust discrimination based on disparate impact is protected under the board policies in a way that there's been much litigation at the federal level, but the board has made a strong stake in the ground on that. And you should know your predecessors the policy on sex-based discrimination, JBB, was a path-breaking policy that led the way for the state and the city. And so that continues to be the legacy that we're building on here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I don't have any questions, but yeah, I appreciate it.
We'll keep you posted and monitor the legal dynamic. And thank you so much.
Thank you. And up next, we have policy JFBA, school choice processes and entrance criteria.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dominic Bivens. I'm a staff specialist here in the Office of Enrollment Choice and Transfer. And so I'll be talking with you guys about our middle and high school choice process. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Good to go on my end. Yeah.
All right, so just an overview, talk about the school choice process, the timeline, some of the improved supports we implemented this school year, our strategies regarding our middle and high school choice process, the participation and results of the process, and then our future plans for expanding access to our middle and high school choice options throughout the district. This presentation is in line with priority 4 and 5 of our school board district priorities. Priority 4, engaging stakeholders, parents and families, and contributing to their student success. And priority 7, continuously working towards equity level at all levels by implementing practices, policies, and procedures to create a welcoming and inclusive academic and professional environment. So one of the first things we want to make sure we do as a district is engage students early in the middle and families early in the process. And so in 3rd and 6th grade, we want families to be researching the various school options and understand how their academic performance impacts their eligibility for our entrance criteria, schools, and programs. By 4th and 7th grade, we want to make sure families know their school choice liaison, understand their students' interests and goals and the schools that align to their children's interests and goals. And remember that grades and test scores, again, impact those eligibility for our entrance criteria, schools, and programs. So usually in October through January, we have our various middle and high school choice options host shadow days and open houses where families can learn more about a particular school community, as well as host information sessions that are usually directed by the choice liaison for the different sending school communities. By December, we launch our annual school choice fair, and then students and families have access to their composite scores, which we use to determine eligibility for the entrance criteria, schools, and programs. And families can begin filling out their school choice application. And we also create guides for families about our various schools throughout the district. By February, we released the results of the school choice process, and families received their offer letters, letting them know what school they were accepted to or received an offer to attend. And then we also launched the second round of the application for those families that want to look at other placement options or did not have the opportunity for whatever reason to participate in the first round of the process. So the way that our school choice process works here in Baltimore City is that families can select up to 5 schools on the application. We use the Gail Shipley matching algorithm to place students at the highest possible choice according to how they rank their choices. So we emphasize to families it's important to list schools in order of preference, as that's how the algorithm works to match students to their highest possible choice. Over the past several years, we've consistently been able to place students at their first and second choice 65-75% of the time. For our entrance criteria schools, we use a ranking system in which students are ranked based on their composite scores, and the students with the highest composite scores are the ones to receive placement in those entrance criteria schools and programs. For all other schools and programs, a lottery is used to determine placement. For our entrance criteria schools, we have Poly, City, Dunbar, and Western. For middle school advanced academic programs, we have these programs at Waverly, Roland Park, Cross Country, Mount Royal, and Francis Scott Key. Again, in order for families and students to be receiving an offer to these programs, they do have to meet the qualifying score based on their composite score. In addition to our entrance criteria high schools, we also have schools with alternative entrance criteria processes. For example, Baltimore School of the Arts, there's an audition process. For Baltimore Design School, there's a portfolio process. For BARD and NAV, students must complete an interview process, and for BARD, students must also complete an essay. For the Ingenuity Project, there's an admission assessment that students must complete in order to be enrolled in that program.
Mr. Bivens, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Can you remind me the schools where Ingenuity is? It's Mount Royal, can you remind me?
No, Mount Royal, Hamilton, James McHenry, and Roland Park.
Roland Park.
And then we have Ingenuity in high school at Poly.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. For our entrance criteria high schools, we use a composite score to determine eligibility. The composite score looks at students' academic performance for 7th grade, the first quarter of the current school year, and their assessment scores from the previous school year. So for middle school, we look at 4th grade final grades, the first quarter of 5th grade, and their 4th grade math and ELA MCAP assessment scores. For high school choice, we look at 7th grade final grades, 8th grade first quarter grades, and their 7th grade MCAP scores. And so those grades and assessment scores are combined together to compile a composite score for the student.
Sorry for all the questions. I had one more.
No, you're fine.
Are these weighted equally?
No, so grades carry 75% of the weight in the composite score, and assessments carry 25% of the weight in the composite score.
And within that, would first quarter grades from 8th grade, for example, be weighted equally to all the grades from 7th grade? Are those equal subcomponents of the 75%?
No, so the final grades carry more weight than those first quarter grades.
Okay, thanks.
So the school choice process has a lot of moving parts. And so one thing that we do to support families is to make sure that each school has a trained choice liaison that counsels and guides students in this process. We also have a variety of resources here at the district level that we provide to families, such as the Choice Guide, and then we host our annual Choice Fair to make sure families have a view of all the different options we offer here in the district. So this past year, we held our convention center at we held our Choice Fair at the Baltimore Convention Center, where over 3,000 students and families attended. We also had a virtual platform for families that were not able to make it to the convention center, where they could learn more about our school options. Again, we also had our school choice guide, which we have a digital version that we feature on our website, as well as a hardback copy that we give to every student participating in the process. And those guides are available to families in English and in Spanish. Our website also features information regarding our various school options. This year, we launched a new enrollment system, our student enrollment management system. And the first thing that it was used for was our middle and high school choice process. Over 2,700 families created an account using the new platform. Um, and in addition to it being used for our middle and high school choice process, it was also used for our pre-K and K enrollment and will be used for our other enrollment processes as we continue to roll the system out. As you see, while there's some work we need to do with engaging families at the middle school level, about half of our families that participate in the process went in and were able to create an account with SIMS. And then, so this is just kind of a snapshot of the school communities that engage with the new platform the most. You just see the top 10 middle school communities and high school communities that engage with the process and how many students from their schools engaged with the new platform. All right, so now I'm going to talk about our middle grade strategy and some of the changes to our high school choice process that were implemented this past year. For our middle school grades, all of our fifth graders are placed in what we call priority groups, where those fifth graders that do not have a zone middle school for their residents, we consider them priority 1, and so they receive preference and placement in this process. But the middle school choice process is open to all fifth graders, so any fifth grader can participate. But if you are a fifth grader at a K to 8, for instance, you already have a sixth grade seat, we consider you priority 2 because you do have a sixth grade seat guaranteed to you at your school. But again, you are welcome to participate in this process to request and select other placement options. In addition to the priority preference for those students that do not have a zone middle school, we also have a sibling preference. So if you have a sibling that attends a particular school, you will receive preference for placement at that school. Location preference. So we try to place students that live in Northwest Baltimore at schools in the Northwest quadrant of the city, because we don't want our babies taking 2 and 3 buses to get to their middle school site. And then, as I mentioned earlier, that priority preference for those students that whose resident is not zoned to a middle school. These preferences, however, do not apply to advanced academic placements. Again, those are based on the composite score for students. And then over the past several years, we've added additional middle school sites to our middle school choice process for families to select. And so this is just a list of the different programs that were added over the last several years. As it relates to our high school choice process, we recently implemented geographical placement preference in that process as well. So just like with the middle school choice process, if you live in Northeast Baltimore, you will have preference for placement at Mervo, Reginald F. Lewis, and the Reach Partnership School, as those are the schools in the Northeast Corridor. Carver, Evanston, and Mervo, our traditional CTE sites, do not have an entrance criteria. So any student is welcome to apply and receive placement in those schools. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we launched a new student enrollment management system, which families could submit their applications online. And they were also able to go on there and see where their children got placed, as opposed to waiting for snail mail, how it had been in the past. So the results released February 19th. Families were able to go in on February 19th, get their placement, their offer letter, and find out where their children were placed. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, quick clarifying question. So for the CTE sites, there is a geographic preference for those. And so
Correct.
that even if, I'm interested in automotive and only Mervo has it, but I would potentially be prompted to go to another CTE site based on geography versus on which trade I wanted.
Yeah, so we don't place students based on trades. We encourage families to select schools based on the programming and trade offerings that school has. But what we've heard from feedback from stakeholders is that, listen, if I live over there off the Alameda, I want to go to the school that's near me. So while we don't place necessarily for the trades, we do place for that geographic preference, taking into mind travel time and things like that for families. So you're correct in that it's the geographic, not necessarily the trade.
But sorry, just to clarify, but
yeah.
that student could technically still get into Mervo. They just wouldn't have the preference, right? I mean, if I lived, sorry, go ahead. I'm just trying to understand the.
Dominic,
That's
can I
great.
help and jump in for a second? Is that okay,
Sure.
Dominic? You're doing a great job, sir, but I wanted to, hi, everybody, Chief High Hubbard. I just want to offer that we had so many complaints from families who lived across the street around the corner from a school that they couldn't get into the CT program that were in non-entrance criteria schools, that we did a little bit of preference for those students to be able to get in. That does not mean they can't go somewhere else. It just gives them the preference in the lottery. It gives them a little bit of an advantage because they live so close to the school. And we've had this for multiple sites across the city, but they can go anywhere. It's still open to them. It's a question of travel and how far they want to go. Is that helpful?
That is helpful. Can you help distinguish a little bit the preference versus a priority? So preference gives you a bit of an additional weight in the lottery, whereas a priority means if you're in the priority, you just get consideration ahead of the people in priority group 2.
So for high school,
Dominic.
there aren't any priority groups, right? Because there are no zone high schools.
Yeah.
So it's just that geographic preference that that like Chief High Hubbard said would give you a slight advantage. But there are no priority groups as it relates to our high school choice process because we don't have zone high schools.
I had a quick follow-up question. I'm
Sure.
sorry. And just sticking with CTE for a second, because it is important, but also going to be big statewide. Do you have a sense of, and if you need to get back to this, that's fine too, a ballpark of the number of students that are not getting into their CTE site of choice, and or folks that are then transitioning as their sophomores or juniors and are actually getting tracked into their trade-based classes? Like,
So
is
we
there
don't have-
movement later in people's high school careers based on specific trades?
So anecdotally, I do know that students move from one school to another, for a variety of different reasons. As it relates to this presentation, we do track students that get into their first, second choice, and I'll get into that a little bit later in the presentation. But in terms of that movement, I don't have the data readily available for me as it relates to that piece.
Yeah, and I think the fidelity to the CTE program would really be a presentation from the secondary success and innovation team where they track what's going on with CTE. Dominic can tell you who's moved where, but it wouldn't tell you the trajectory of courses and how they're making it. So if I know John Turner helps us with this, we can make sure that there's a note for that team. They can probably provide that information when they are doing their updates for you as well.
Thanks for
Any other questions? So in addition to those changes, as it relates to high school choice and the formula, we only use one formula to determine eligibility for those entrance criteria high schools. For a few years during the pandemic, we were not using assessment scores in the calculation. Last year, we went back to our standard practice of using grades and assessment scores in the calculation. So for this cohort that would participate in choice last year, we used the MCAP scores, and we will be doing the same for the cohort participating in choice this school year. And again, we look at that 7th grade and we look at the current school year, the first quarter of the current school year. One other thing is in that in years past, we would give students a 10% bump in their grade in the calculation of the composite score if they were taking honors, IB, or ingenuity courses. It's now just a flat 10 points. The reason for that is that if you had students that were scoring really high, like getting a 95, they weren't getting the full 10% because the scores were capped at 100. And so now they would get those 10 points. So let's say you scored a 95 in your honor science course, it will be calculated as 105 in the calculation of the composite score.
I'm so sorry. How does that calculation work if people are transitioning from out of district? So if they went to school, middle school in the county, how is that like
So
and
usually,
honors tracking and things?
sure. So families that are applying to our middle high school options that are coming from outside the district have to provide us documentation, including their grade and assessment information. If the grade information that they've provided indicates that the student was in honors courses, then we give those students the honors weight in the calculation of their child's composite score. All right. So now I can get to the numbers.
I'm so sorry. That last follow-up question. And does that count even, are they then put in through that lottery system as well if they're transferring in as like a 10th grader or 11th grader?
No,
Or-
so we don't. So we don't
Okay.
run the lotteries for those grades. It's just for the ninth graders. We look at seat availability and all those things, and it's our formal transfer process for those students in those upper grades. That's a great question, though. I have to tell families that all the time. School choice is just for our fifth graders going to sixth graders and our eighth graders going to ninth grade. So thank you. As it relates to our participation rate for high school, we had 91% of our eighth graders submit a choice, participate in our first round of the choice process, with over 70% receiving their first choice. This is really huge because in years past, as I've been doing this work, it's usually been around 40 to 50% that get that first choice. And so with our new system, helping families to make more informed decisions, we had 70% of our students receive their first choice. So, that's, for me, that's really great news. Is the more students that are getting in their first choice, the less they're coming during our wonderful summer transfer window. Middle school choice, we had a participation rate of 72%. I just want to give some nuance to this because I know that number is alarming, but there are some nuances as it relates to the middle school choice process. Number one is, again, that priority placement. Some of our middle schoolers don't have a zone middle school to go to. And so this number is not encompassing of all of our fifth graders that participate in the process, but those priority one students that do not have a zone middle school. Many of those students, or no, I won't say many, but you have some that opt to just participate in selecting a charter school or private school, parochial school, and opt not to participate in this process. And so those kind of nuances vary from cohort to cohort in terms of the participation rates for this particular process. Another thing that I want to make note of as we go to this next slide is that middle school choice, particularly for those advanced academic programs, is way more competitive than it is for high school placement and entrance criteria programs. For instance, Roland Park's advanced academic program has 90 seats, and you may have 600 fifth graders applying for that program. So you have about a 15% chance of receiving placement in Roland Park's advanced academic. Conversely, you look at a poly, that might have 1,000 applicants. They have 400 seats that are given in the choice process. So then you have about a 40% chance of getting in the poly as opposed to a 15% chance of getting into Roland Park's thing. So it's kind of a numbers thing. So that I just wanted to give that nuance to these numbers as it relates to that process. We recognize there's still a lot of work that we have to do as it relates to middle school choice, but again, just wanted to give and highlight some of those nuances. So as we look at those students that got their first choice, and we look at it by race and ethnicity, what this talks about is all of the students that got their first choice. So about 4,271 students got their first choice. Of those 4,000 students, 71% of those students were Black, 24% of those students were white, 2% were multiracial, Asian, Native Indian, or Pacific Islander. Then we look at his ethnicity, because race and ethnicity are two different things. About 82% of our students that got their first choice identify as not Hispanic, with 18% of our students that identified as Latino. And again, you can be Black and Latino, or white and Latino, or, and so there's some overlap there. So now when we look at our racial and ethnic groups, and look at the percentage of students receiving their school choice, while 71% of the students that got their first choice were African American, of our African American students participating in this process, 59% got their first choice. And then we see much higher numbers, percentages with our other ethnic groups, but we know that those are much smaller numbers of students. So for instance, our Asian students, we only have about 69% in this process with 55 of them percent. So the percentage is higher, but it's a much smaller population of students. For our students with disabilities, we see that they're those students that their placement rates are in line with our district average, with 43% of students getting in their first choice for 5th grade and 78% of students with disabilities receiving their first choice for high school. For our multilingual learners, we also see them matching what for our general population of students, 74% receive their first choice for 5th grade for middle school choice, and 80% of our multilingual learners receive their first choice through the process. And then this is just kind of breaks it down geographically, who's receiving their first choice. And so when we talk about who's getting their first choice and things like that, doesn't necessarily mean Poly and City or the entrance criteria schools, right? So if you're in that southern corridor of the city, you might select Ben Franklin if you live in Brooklyn, or if you live in Cherry Hill, you might select Digital Harbor. Remember, there's that placement preference built into the formula for placement. So if you put digital, you live in Cherry Hill, you're likely going to get your first choice. And so that's why you see a lot of purple in that southern part of the district. Obviously, as you go up north, the nuances, the entrance criteria, and all of it play a bigger part. But that's the reason for that. And then as we look at school community, neighborhoods, and students receiving their first choice, these is kind of breakdown of the top 10 neighborhoods in our district where students are receiving their first choice, with students in Highlandtown, Park Heights, and in Bel Air Edison receiving the highest number of students. But again, if you go back to the map, you see that it's again, because of the nuances of what students are selecting and things like that, it doesn't necessarily reflect, but they have a larger number of students as well that impact that. And then we also look at the school community of students that are receiving their first choice. And so this is showing last year who the top sending students, and then this year. And so while we have our usual suspects, Roland Parks and your Mount Royals, you also have schools like Katherine Johnson and Cherry Hill where students are, and Vanguard where students are receiving their first choice as well. And then when we also looked at the percentage, because I know that we have some very large middle schools, some very large elementary schools, and we have some very small ones. So we looked at the percentages as well. And so Margaret Brent, while a small school, had the most highest percentage of their scholars receiving their first choice. And then just talking about some of the future work as it relates to this process, thinking about how we engage our families and support them, and how we make this process more simple for families. That's part of the reason why we implemented a new student enrollment management system to make it easier for families. There admittedly have been some bumps with new application, as is with any piece of technology. But we're really hoping that the end result is making this process more streamlined and easier for families to navigate. So that is the work, and that work is ongoing. And leveraging our different supports here in the office to make sure that families have access to information about this process. While school choice sits in enrollment, it's impacted by so many other offices, OAA, ONI, and communications. All these different offices work together to make sure that families are making informed choices about their middle and high school options. And then just moving forward, making sure that we're continuing to look at and revise our school choice process and policies, looking to expand middle grades options, and looking at how we can present and create more options and opportunities for families at the middle school level, and then looking at our overall school portfolio, and where we have different CTE programs and things of that nature. Again, ongoing work as we try to make this process better for for students and families. All right, and so that's all I got for you guys this afternoon. And so at this time, I'll take any additional questions that you guys may have. And thank you guys so much for letting me speak this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, that was very thorough. And so I'll kick it off with some questions, and I kind of building off of the questions that Commissioner Ames Messenger and Commissioner Stephon or Redding Lallinger asked. So the populations that I'm really looking at are multilingual learners, students in foster care, unhoused, and students with disabilities. And I saw that you had the multilingual learners and the students with disabilities, but for our foster care youth and unhoused youth, how I would like to see more information about like how they fare in the school choice process, because I have connected with some who have expressed, it's very difficult for me to, I got a new placement and I have a foster parent that I'm trying to like coordinate to log into the system and do these things, and the clock is still like running out. So I really want to get an idea of how they're faring in the school choice process, and also what type of outreach happens with students that are identified a little bit early as like unplaced. Then I think, yeah, and then I guess something to add on to that is just like what happens in the composite score when life happens. Like say one of those critical points in the period that comprises the composite score. Say you have a death in the family, say your parents are getting divorced and that specific score is just in the trash. Like, is there anything that we do to offer like grace, like seeing that they were consistent outside of life, that life event? Yeah.
Sure. So a couple things. I want to address the question regarding unplaced students first. So as it relates to students that don't receive placement, again, nuances with that is based on what students select and things of that nature. We know that some of our schools are more popular than others, and so all of those things kind of taking part in that. As it relates to what are we doing for those students that don't receive a placement in that first round, we do have a second round of the process for families to participate in to select other placement options. Second round is are those schools that did not fill their seats in the first round of the process. So we really try to encourage as many families as possible to participate in the first round of the process. We also have a summer transfer window where families that did not receive a placement or did not receive the placement that they wanted through the school choice process, they can come to our office and request other placement options. Obviously, that's based on seat availability and those things of that nature. To your other question, as it relates to what are we doing as a district? I'm sorry. I'm blanking. That last question that you
She had a lot of questions. It's okay. I'm gonna jump in real quick if you don't mind, Dominic. You asked about foster care students, right, and
Yeah,
how
thank
they
you.
are placed. It's I got you, Dominic. We're a team, right?
And
We're a team. Yeah. So Courtney Pate's office, Dr. Pate, they manage the state supervised care programming for the district, and they are working with ECT and others in revising policy and practice about how we're working with those students to make sure that they're placed. But of course, if a student is moved after their placement has been made, Dominic's team can work with Dr. Pate and that team to make sure that the student has the right placement for the child. So that is something. The unhoused students, I'd have to go back and check, to be honest with you, because I don't know if we've ever tracked it that way. But I also know that we have data reporting rules and guidelines based on the numbers of kids we have in certain categories. So if you allow us to go back and look at that up, Dominic, we make a note of that. We can work with Dr. Pate's office as well to understand students who are unstably housed or considered homeless by McKinney-Vento standards for the district, if we're able to track placement for those students. But I will say McKinney-Vento requires us that once a student has a placement, we have to transport that child to the placement. So if they get transportation to their school, whether they are unstably housed or in a shelter or whatnot, we will provide transportation and other supports to McKinney-Vento to that student.
Commissioner Esposito's other question was around the appeals process. That's what I was blanking on.
No, I think there's actually like so my understanding of the unplaced, like I think I wasn't understanding that those are students that were not accepted into any of their choices.
It could also be they didn't apply.
No,
So
the unplaced number is only those students that applied and didn't get a placement. We don't
Okay.
capture who that's in the participation rate.
Thank you.
So
Sorry.
is there a way to clarify that, like before it goes to the full board, clarify that piece, like what that means, and then also include like I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around for the ones that I kind of described that are non-participation, like they didn't get to participate in the system at all. Like what does that look like for them, like outside of the normal process?
I would say it's not that they didn't get to participate, they chose not to participate. I want to be very clear about it, right?
If they didn't have parents, then
Yeah, but
they can't. Yeah.
But it wasn't that we didn't offer it, and we pay, our office pays stipends for choice liaisons for every single one of our schools. We coach them, we train them on how this works. So even if their parent is not able to support them, our choice liaison's job is to work with every single child and make sure an application is submitted, and we track the rate so it doesn't happen. We know there's cracks that fall through, but we have done that. And then there is a second round of choice that happens in the spring. And then the transfer window opens in the summer. We started June 17th, and it's still going. We're supposed to close it August 2nd, but if you've been to North Avenue, you see the lines of families that are coming here at the last minute to transfer. We have that through the summer as well. So that's where those other students are. And then Dominic can also place the students if he needs to.
Okay.
Right, so that's what I was going to address. So those students that don't receive a first or second round placement, our office does place based on where students reside, their composite score, and seat availability. And we will place those students so that they do have a placement for the next school year. And then to Chief Highcover's point, they can come in during the summer and request other placement options if they so choose.
And I know we're saying like they can do these things, but from experience, like being someone, that doesn't have a parent advocate or maybe has had multiple placements, what does that, I really want to know how they're faring in this process specifically, because without that, it looks like non-participation, but what it really could be is that there are barriers to their participation. So how do we make sure that they do have a fair chance in the school choice process that's not necessarily dependent on the typical family structure, typical engagement structure around, adults?
Esposito, just to jump in, like, for example, like that you might not, like, you have a lot of movement among districts. The timing is not going to typically align with an academic year, like that there's kind of specific variables outside of just choice that impact these students, right?
Yeah.
Am I tracking that? Because that's been
and I think
my
that
experience.
again, having the choice liaisons, because we didn't have them pre-pandemic, we had them and they volunteered to do it. And if Dominic and the team could convince schools to have them, and then we had necessarily fidelity to implementation. And so we have seen that with the stipends provided to those folks, the tracking of what kids are submitting, doing, et cetera, has increased tremendously. We also have our community schools coordinators, as you know, who can do outreach and support to kids when these things happen, and make sure that the family is healthy and whole, or whatever that child needs to be successful. So it's not perfect, but we have put in ways in which we can make sure kids are getting their applications in, and also doing outreach to those students at schools when we don't hear back from them, and then doing placement with them.
Okay, okay, thank you. Yeah, and sorry to go down a
No, it's okay.
but yeah, like just for the sake of time, like I know we're running close, but so I'll hold the rest of my questions and send them to you all so that we can like get through the presentations. If that's okay with everyone, yeah. Okay, that
I will
works.
submit any final things I have in writing, just because
Okay,
almost,
okay.
we're almost at time today.
Thank you. And thank you both. Thank you both so much for like, yeah, like having this dialogue. I think it's really important.
Absolutely. And thank you. And I want to shout out Dominic very quickly because he's a rock star and his former math teacher self, all that data, working with OAA to pull that data. I just really appreciate him and the entire ECT team. I have to say from everybody, they are managing a tremendous workload right now of having literally hundreds of families coming in for the past 2 weeks, staying here until midnight, entering in families to make sure kids get their placements. And so I had to take the moment, if I can, to shout out my team, and I just celebrate all of them, including Rockstar Dominic.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
thank you.
much.
And also, you get a disproportionate amount of people who are cranky and unhappy with you. So thank you for taking that view from like the rest of us who don't have to be in the room with them. So thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you
and I
guys. I appreciate it.
And I do really appreciate the way that you did put the data together because that got my wheels turning, like, you know, so I appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate that as well.
Looks like next we have and we have update of the general orders body worn cameras.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stacy Toze. I'm the chief of schools, and I too have a Rockstar team. So joined with me in the room, we have Major Norman Coleman, we have Chief Jeffrey Shorter, we have Director Sabree Barnes, and also who's going to be co-facilitating our Director of School Police Systems and Logistics, Nick Smith. So this is a very exciting topic, and we are happy to present it to you today and also to receive some feedback. So today's presentation will focus on updates to our school police general orders, specifically regarding the use of our body-worn cameras. This initiative is part of our ongoing efforts to enhance safety, build trust, and ensure the well-being of our community. And we'll cover aspects today such as the guidelines for usage, privacy protections, and the phased implementation plan. But before we dive in to the updates, briefly want to discuss what the general order is. A general order is a comprehensive directive that outlines the conduct, the duties, and the procedures of police officers to ensure consistent and lawful operations within the law enforcement agency. So these orders are crucial for maintaining professionalism, transparency, and accountability within our police force. Our initiative to implement body-worn cameras for school police is closely aligned with the board's priorities, ensuring a safer and more transparent school environment. So when we look at board priority 4, effective stakeholder engagement, we're looking to use this as a vital tool in enhancing communication and trust between school police officers and all stakeholders, including our parents, families, caregivers, and community partners. When we look at board priority number 5, equal access to district services, resources, and facilities, we want to ensure the success of our students, staff, and the surrounding community. That's paramount for us. So the introduction of body-worn cameras underscores our dedication to providing a safe and equitable learning environment. Something also to know is these cameras help to ensure that all of our students and our staff have equal access to a secure educational setting, free from bias or misconduct. Also, by maintaining a clear record of interactions, we can address concerns promptly and fairly, ensuring that our school district services and resources are utilized effectively to support the success of our entire school community. So the updates to our school police general orders, particularly regarding body-worn cameras, are designed to further this mission. Our school police mission statement is projected for you. And by implementing body-worn cameras, we aim to enhance safety, accountability, and transparency within our schools. So these updates will help us build stronger relationships with our families, our school communities, ensuring all interactions are conducted with equity and impartiality. So our school police operate daily to support students, administrators, and the school community, allowing administrators to de-escalate issues when possible while being ready to intervene when necessary. And their goal is to ensure a safe and supportive school environment. We reinforce training focused on de-escalation and a restorative mindset, ensuring serious situations are handled by school administrators or diversion programs, and engage in positive community events beyond daily duties. There's actually one slide that I don't see, but as a broader part of our broader school strategy, in April, we went over at a Safety and Wholeness Committee meeting, the people structures that support school safety. So we're not going to review that today. So this is a little off of, so I'm just kind of going to talk through it because the next one is our core. We're looking for the implementation slide. Nope, nope, nope. Yeah. Okay, you can go back. You can go back up. Just give us 1 second. All right, so I'm going to talk about our implementation. In September 2022, the board approved revisions to our general orders 1037, marking the official start of our body-worn cameras initiatives for school police, and this set the stage for a phased rollout aimed at enhancing security within the city schools. By winter 2023, key team members from city schools received specialized training from Baltimore City Police Department, ensuring the readiness for the integration of our body-worn cameras. This spring 2024, we began training our school police officers on body use cameras and established pilot protocols, which were publicly shared on our city schools website to make sure that we were maintaining transparency. So currently we're in phase 1 of the pilot, and that has been conducted from July, which was the start, and it's going to go to December 2024. And the focus for our phase 1 pilot is to focus on patrol officers, which is allowing us to gather data and refine our approach. On August 20th, and actually now that's the 28th. So today we're presenting our draft revisions for you. And with this, we're also going to make sure that they are available online. And I believe as I'm still talking, they're going to try to get the slide up for you to see. The formal adoption process will begin with the first reader September 2024 and the second reader on October 22nd. So our hope is for phase 2 of the pilot to start in January 2025 after the board adoption. In this, we want to expand our body-worn camera use to all officers, including patrol and school-based officers. So again, we're currently in phase 1, and phase 1 is only our patrol officers. So by June 2025, we're aiming for full implementation of our body-worn cameras across all school police officers, incorporating insights from police, the pilot that we are currently in, to ensure that we initiate supports and our safety objectives effectively. And we should be on slide number 7.
Is it not projecting? Because I only have the PDF. I need the hard copy to project.
Hold on a minute. Nick is gonna project. Yep, just scroll down.
Dr. Place to say, like, while we're waiting for this to come up, I just,
Yep.
a quick question that
That's it.
is top of mind
Yeah.
for me, is just thinking about, given we have a new chief of police for Baltimore City Public Schools, how much time has he had to liaise, like, and work with this policy? And I know the obvious answer, but I just want to make sure I'm very. that we're
So
thinking-
although, thank you for that question. So although his official first day was Monday, he's been actively reviewing all of the policies, the PowerPoint, and actually there was one change as today, we had to change one piece of the language. Go to 7. So he's very involved. He's in the area to answer any questions as well. But yeah, he jumped right in as soon as he accepted the offer. He wanted to learn all of the everything that was going on. And he's been using his knowledge of, working with other police force areas to help us make revisions.
Got it.
So
Okay,
that's a
I
long
just-
way saying he's a part of the process. He started very early.
Okay.
Okay,
I
so
just want
with
to make
this,
sure that like nothing is like too premature before like he's had an opportunity to like really thoroughly just digest like where we are as a system and like the type of implications for all of our interest holders involved. And so just something I just want us to think through cognizantly as a body. So I just put that on the table. I don't
Yep.
nothing for a response, but just something for us to acknowledge.
yes, thank you, absolutely. So this is our current state. Our current state, we're operating under a limited pilot for body-worn cameras. So right now, it's only our patrol officers that are utilizing body-worn cameras, and they are looking at our policies and training procedures from Baltimore City Police Department. So this pilot that we're doing is actually allowing us to gather initial data for to assess the effectiveness of the body-worn cameras and identify any areas that need adjustment for full implementation. And I mean things down to like making sure that, when they have their cameras on, they're, facing the right direction. Like, we've been reviewing the footage just to make sure like there's lots of learning experiences that we have each day that we are gleaning. So when we do eventually get into phase 2, that we will not have to go through some of the growing pains that we're currently going through. Some of the restrictions that we have right now, according to our current general order, school police are instructed not to use the body-worn cameras when they're responding to calls for service involving students in city schools during school hours. And also they are not allowed to use them during activities related to school-sponsored event, both on and off of school property. So for example, if a patrol officer gets called to a school, when they enter the building, they turn off their cameras right now because our general orders does not allow for them to turn the cameras on at this time. What we are looking to do with these revisions that we're proposing for the general orders is we're actively trying to revise them to get detailed protocols for how we will use them in schools once we are able to turn the cameras on. So these updates are essential for moving to our phase 2, and using them in broader use. So these new protocols that we're proposing is going to address the unique circumstances of a school environment, considering factors such as like student privacy, the nature of school interactions, and being in the presence of minors. Again, as we move forward, and if the board approves, we're using the information that we get currently and the best practices from other jurisdictions, and input from our school communities to, make changes. And we're implementing these changes to make sure that the body-worn camera align with our mission to create a safe and supportive learning environment, while also making sure that we're respecting the right and the privacy of our students. So once the revisions are complete, we will transition to phase 2, which again will not be until January. And the goal by that time is to have the cameras turned on, because by July 2025, the state law, all police officers have to have body-worn cameras on. So we are trying to do some proactive work to get them turned on right now. So getting back to our body-worn camera, we are making sure that the revisions are aligned with our policies, with federal and state law, as well as our board policies. And the alignment is crucial for safeguarding student privacy and recognizing, the unique role of school police within the school setting. Go to the next slide, please. Yep, thank you. So the guidelines for activation, in the general order, it will provide detailed guidelines on when the body-worn camera should be activated. So an example is like if there's imminent threat to students or staff, or there's active criminal investigations. It also will specify instances when body-worn cameras should not be activated, for like an administrative task in a building, or if someone is making contacts with a confidential informant. Like those are some examples, and we'll go give you some further examples as we move forward. So we're benchmarking best practices. From Baltimore City Police Department and other jurisdictions. We utilize Coatesville, Pennsylvania, who currently has a school police force. So there are other jurisdictions that the city police force or the local police force will work with the schools, but not many people have their own school police force. So that's something important to note. And then I guess lastly, we want to make sure that these guidelines and best practices can help us, make sure that we're implementing the body-worn cameras across all schools, making sure that we're enhancing the safety, transparency, and accountability. Yes, Commissioner Ames Messenger. Oh, no? Okay.
It keeps going up when I put it down. I have a question about intake, but I'll ask at the end. You're good.
Okay. And Commissioner Sally, again, when we get to the question portion, Chief Shorter is here, so he can answer any questions that you may have too.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, so we're moving into our core principles.
Good evening, everyone. Nick Smith. Okay. Body-worn cameras, they contribute to significantly enhance professionalism, transparency, and accountability by providing clear documentation for our officers in their interaction with the student population and our community at large. They play a crucial role in evidence collection and ensuring that the investigation and legal processes are based on accurate and objective information. It also helps to maintain the integrity of the body-worn camera recording with strict guidelines that are in place to prevent tampering to securing the body-worn camera data. Privacy protection protocols are established to safeguard the privacy of students and staff, ensuring that body-worn cameras are used responsibly. Comprehensive training will be provided to officers on proper use of the body-worn cameras and relevant legal considerations. We've collaborated with the actual vendor and with our partners at Baltimore City Police Department to ensure that our officers are receiving state-of-the-art training. Additionally, body-worn cameras are instrumental in de-escalating situations as they encourage calm behavior from both the officers that are in the field and the individuals that they're involved with. We are committed to continuously refining our policies and protocols based on feedback and best practices. And this comes from our officers that are in the field and the community at large. And also, like Dr. Tosay said, we've done extensive research with departments that look like us and some that don't necessarily function like us, but they perform some of the similar duties that our department does. This approach ensures that a balance between maintaining transparency and respecting the privacy and rights of the individuals that we interact with on a daily basis. Next slide, please. This slide outlines the policy regarding the activation of body-worn cameras by school police officers. It states that school administrators are responsible for disciplinary intervention for students' behavioral infractions, and school police should not be involved in routine disciplinary matters. School police officers are not to activate their body-worn cameras in school buildings, on school property, or as Dr. Tosay mentioned earlier, during school-sponsored event. And this is unless they're responding to an imminent threat or a serious harm to students, staff, or members of the school community. There is an active criminal law enforcement action or an investigation on the way, or an encounter becomes adversarial and cannot be de-escalated after initial contact in a situation that would not be otherwise required recorded. Next slide, please. For incidents that do not involve students but require investigative or enforcement-related actions, the body-worn camera must be activated immediately. When responding to any in-progress call or activity that is likely to necessitate immediate criminal law enforcement action, officers are required to activate their body-worn cameras without delay. Additionally, for routine non-emergency calls for service, the body-worn camera should be activated immediately before arriving at the scene. These protocols ensure that all relevant encounters are documented, maintaining transparency, accountability in the law enforcement activities that we conduct. Next slide, please. The body-worn camera should be activated in several critical situations to ensure proper documentation and accountability. These include arrest and any other use of force issues that might arise. The camera must also be activated when operating a vehicle in emergency response mode or when conducting a stop such as a traffic stop, bicycle, or pedestrian stop. Additionally, the body-worn camera should be turned on when transporting individuals under emergency petitions or during encounters with the public that becomes confrontational or when complaints are raised. These protocols are in place to maintain transparency and to protect both the officer and the public.
Also, one thing we would like to add, so like on this, as of today, like we made another change. So like the word interviews, that's something that we will be taking off of our, like revisiting that portion. So to your point earlier, Commissioner Sally, we've had Chief Shorter take another look at it, and that's something we will be making a revision to as well.
Slide, please. In a school setting, school police must carefully balance privacy and investigative concerns with the need for transparency, while adhering to public disclosure laws. There are situations where privacy or dignity should take precedence over recording, such as avoiding the recording of an individual who are nude or when sensitive areas are exposed. Additionally, body-worn cameras should not be used in areas where there are reasonable expectations of privacy, like locker rooms, dressing rooms, or restrooms. Importantly, officers must obtain consent before recording interviews with victims of sex offenses. These guidelines ensure that students' privacy is respected while maintaining the integrity of the police work. Body-worn cameras are not intended for use during non-law enforcement activities. This includes routine administrative tasks, such as conversations between an officer and their supervisor, or discussions with teachers, principals, or city school staff regarding students support or school-based disciplinary actions. The primary purpose of body-worn cameras is to document law enforcement-related activities, ensuring that routine administrative interactions remain private and focus are maintained on the specific needs of the school community.
So engaging stakeholders, including students, parents, guardians, staff, and the broader community is crucial in developing and refining our body-worn camera policies. Their input helps us balance the need for security and transparency with the importance of privacy and educational focus. So by actively involving stakeholders, we build trust and ensure that our practices reflect the values and needs of the entire school community. So this is a collaborative approach, and we've listed some of the people. We created a stakeholder engagement plan as we move along with this process. And our body-worn camera usage, we want to make sure that it aligns to our mission to create and maintain a safe learning environment, while also respecting the rights and privacy of our individuals involved. And that is it. And we are welcome any questions or feedback that you have.
Can you go back a slide? Just 1 second. Thank you so much. That was really
Sure.
cool.
This one?
Sorry, no, the community, the second to last, the community input. Sorry.
The stakeholder engagement one?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for your work on this. I know it's hard to do when there's not a lot of precedent for other similar districts with police forces. So thank you.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, my audio cut out for a second. Was that the end of the presentation? Okay,
It was.
thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Sorry for that. Yeah, I had to move because I didn't have any audio.
No worries. And I know we gave you a lot of information in a short amount of time. So yeah, we'll give you some time to process, but if there are some questions that you have come up with later too, we'll take those.
Yeah, and this is Commissioner Sally. So a couple things that I'm thinking ahead to when this comes to the board for like first reader. The things that I think are going to be critically important is thinking about how we talk about two things, like how we talk about what the overall strategy is, like how I know you have that framed up top, because I think this is where for our stakeholders and interest holders, like the conversation around protecting like our schools, our assets, everything needs to be kind of situated in that larger overarching strategy. And then secondarily, helping folks understand the range of feedback that we've received and how that's been used to shape implementation, policy, and other practice kind of going forward. So like, I think that's going to be kind of key and pivotal. And then third on the back end is kind of monitoring and measuring, like from an accountability standpoint, like as we're looking at incidents, compliance, other things like that. And the learning angle of this is thinking about how proactively upfront in this policy, we're discussing like what that looks like and how the board and the public is kept abreast of that. And I know some of that is required in state law and other kind of guidance that we need to, or regulations that we need to follow. But I think all of that makes for a more cohesive presentation so that this is not lost on, this is not kind of attacked as a singular standalone policy, but rather like seen as a comprehensive set of work going forward to really support our students, our educators, and our assets.
Thank you for the feedback.
And then the other thing is, one thing I think is missing for me is seeing a little bit more around just civil rights and like that. I will, because we're over time right now, is like helping the board understand, you know, how we're considering like civil rights obligations, because this new leg of work and this support, I think kind of continuously situating in that and then recognizing, you know, our work and our obligation to meet like the civil rights data collection and talk about incidents and things like that. So I think just talking about how we're upholding civil rights in all of this work is going to be critically important. In my humble opinion. I am Joe. Thank you for the receptivity.
Thank you.
Wondering to add on to Commissioner Sally's pile of wonderings. I think looking at specifically because we have the benefit of a pilot of looking at like what's coming out of the data that's coming out of there, what are the types of things when there's specific asks referencing that, like how is that flow of information being stored? When is it being released? How is it being released? How is it being evaluated? Would be things that I would wonder coming out of the pilot. Again, to that like larger narrative, transparency, concerns about rights, concerns about privacy.
Thank you.
I'll just chime in really quickly and say thank you so much for your work on this. It is a lot of information. It's very, very thoughtful. So I want to be thoughtful with my follow-up. So I'll probably reach out over email, but thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, thank
And
you
thanks for
everyone
doing
for the
out.
feedback.
Yeah. And I really appreciate, I'll just say this real quick, like the advocacy organizations, like I think it's great to see like Youth as Resources in there, because I know that like they've definitely been doing a lot of advocacy around this. And yeah, just the whole group represents like a broad range of like perspectives that have been involved. So, thank you.
And doing this the first week of school. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because you have nothing else going on in your life right now. So thank you.
No, and we appreciate the feedback. So again, I said we have a whole look, hold on, here go one crew. There goes Chief Daughter, and then on my other side we got Nick and Major Coleman. So if you have any more technical questions, we have the crew in here that can respond. But if not, we look forward to the feedback in email as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you to the whole team. And we have several compliance reports, but I'm wondering if for the sake of time, if we can send any questions that we have maybe to folks, just if we have any feedback on the compliance report.
Commissioner Esposito, would it be okay if we, to kind of disseminate and collect those, we send any of that feedback to Dr. Judkins? And that can be like disseminated out just to kind of collect that in the one nice neat package. Okay.
Yep, that's perfect. So yeah, any feedback we have will go to Dr. Judkins, and she'll be sure to like she does a great job at like keeping track of responses and things too. So, and do we have any public comment today?
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Tanisha. No, we did not have anyone sign up for public comment this evening.
Okay. Well, does anyone want a motion to adjourn? Because I think that's it. Yeah, that's everything on our agenda. So thank you, everyone that presented, everyone that attended. Yeah. Any motion?
Yeah, I mentioned it, Jamie.
You need a
Do
second?
we have a second?
I second it.
Yay! Awesome. Awesome. Thank you all. Thank you for such a great meeting. And we'll see you next time. And the next meeting is, let me give everyone that information really quick. Our next policy meeting is going to be, sorry, I did this a little bit backwards, September 17th, and we're going to be looking at policy JICJ. We have some compliance reports about conducting research. We know we have an update on regulations about conducting research and several compliance reports. And if you want to see what is on our policy calendar for the policy committee, it is available on our website. So hope to see you next time.
See you soon. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.
Have a great week. Bye.